Hey guys, this is Flash, and we're getting ready to do a sloth encounter, and so we're gonna have some people who have never seen Flash and they don't even know what they're coming to do. So it's probably gonna be really exciting.
Ready? Kevin, you good?
Yep.
All right, guys. What your dad has got you for Christmas is a sloth encounter. Come on in. All right. If you guys want to hang your coats right here, it is hot in here. I was about to take my coat off, but she's wearing it. All right, guys, so this is Flash. Flash is a sloth, obviously. Give me 1 second here. And this morning, you guys are going to feed Flash his breakfast. And while you do that, I'm going to teach you some things about sloths that you likely don't know. And here are the rules of the game. So the sloth cannot see the difference between this and this. He has no color vision. And he's only seeing shapes and shadows, so he literally can't see the difference between these two things. So this you put in his mouth, and this you don't. All right. He's got big sharp teeth, so don't stick your fingers in his mouth. And you just give him his food like this. You're welcome to pet him. He prefers to be petted like this. He doesn't like you to scratch him like that. He absolutely hates that. And he doesn't particularly like you messing with the belly side of him. But if you want to pet him, you can pet him like this all you want to. And he's going to hang down closer to us in a minute once he realizes we're ready to start. Hey, Flash, come here, baby. Hey, Bubba. Oh, good boy. He's a good boy. So you guys are welcome to stand approximately this close to him to take your pictures. You can stand on both sides of him and take pictures. If you need an extra photographer to take a picture of the group of you, Kevin will be happy to help. And we are live on Facebook and TikTok right now, I think.
And YouTube and X.
So if you guys want to shout anybody out, you're welcome to. You guys are in from Alabama, right?
Yes.
Are you going to Auburn?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, what do you major in?
Nursing.
Nursing, excellent. My daughter, who lives in Oklahoma City, has been a nurse for the last 6 years. And they pay so well out there that she has bankrolled all the money to pay for her med school, and she started med school this fall.
Oh, that's great.
And I told her, why? You make so much as a nurse. Why would you want to do that to yourself? But she's an adrenaline junkie and wants to hack on people. So, anyhow, Flash is a sloth, obviously. Flash, alive in the world today, there are two-toed sloths and three-toed sloths. So all sloths have 3 toes on the back feet. Those are his back feet. A two-toed sloth or two-fingered sloth has 2 on the front. A 3-fingered has 3 on the front. Some other basic differences between two-toed and three-toed sloths. The 3-toed sloths have more vertebrae in their cervical spine from their skull to their shoulders. So the 3-toed sloth turns its head 270 around like an owl, like this. The two-toed does not. The 3-toed sloth has 3 vertebrae of a tail. The two-toed has no tail. But they have the same number of vertebrae from end to end. So that means that the two-toed has not tremendously, it has more between their hips and their shoulders. So that means that a two-toed will turn his whole body like a slinky, where a three-toed turns his head like an owl. So if you watch, give me just a second when he gets done with that bite of food. Good morning, Flash. How are you, buddy? So if you watch, Flash will rotate his whole body around like a slinky. And he gets it to where his shoulders are basically 180 out from his hips, like that. And a three-toed sloth would not do that. So two-toed is more like a slinky, three-toed is more like an owl, as far as the way their spines work. But go ahead. So all sloths are slow. Sloths are famously slow. But sloths are slow in ways that you don't think about an animal being slow. So sloths are slow not only in their movement, they're slow in their digestion, their metabolism, their metabolic processes. They are slow in every way that an animal can be slow. And for anybody that's watching online, people sometimes, and for you guys too, some people sometimes think that this bar right here is his whole environment. Not at all. This is where he does his encounters. If you look inside of here, that is his actual home. It goes 2 stories up. He's got trees and branches and hammocks and places to lay and all that kind of stuff inside of there. He just comes out here for his encounters. And if we're late to his encounter, all these smears on the other side of the glass are on his side. He gets down here and he gets his nose right in the glass and be like this, saying, hey, come on, it's time, let's go. So slow in their digestion. So the first study's on exactly how slowly a sloth digests its food. They put some 3-millimeter glass beads into some sloth's food and waited to see how long it took them to come out. That was 61 to 64 days. So that was the first theory on how slowly a sloth digests its food. No one seriously believes that anymore. It just seems that glass beads don't go through a sloth the way the food goes through a sloth. So the next study that they did, they put some durable dyes into some various food types and just waited to see how long it took various food types to come through based on the dye in the food. And that worked out more in the 18 to 30 days range. So sloths primarily eat leaves. Leaves are mainly cellulose. Cellulose is hard to digest. So the cellulose would be more towards the 30 days end of that range. The fruits and veggies would be more towards the 18 days end of that scale. So they digest their food really slowly, but they digest it very thoroughly. They also eat a tremendous amount of food. So a sloth eats 10% of its body weight every single day. That's sort of a ho-hum number until you put it to human perspectives. I weigh 180 pounds. So that would be me eating 18 16-ounce porterhouse steaks every single day. Obviously that couldn't work. I'd give it a try, but it wouldn't work. So he's going to eat 10% of his body weight every single day, and yet he goes to the bathroom only 3 or 4 times a month. So once in 7 to 10 days, solid and liquid both. He doesn't even tinkle between trips to the bathroom. So if he eats 10% of his body weight every single day and goes to the bathroom only once in 10 days, that would suggest that he might go to the bathroom and lose 100% of his weight. But he does digest the food and metabolize it very thoroughly. In reality, when he goes to the bathroom, he will lose 1/3 of his body weight, meaning he metabolized 2/3 of it. Just the leaves are very low quality, very low nutritional value. Just leave it, don't feed him off the floor. And but still, 1/3 of his body weight when he goes to the bathroom. Again, putting that to humans' perspectives, nursing students are good at math. I weigh 180. So let that settle for a minute, right? So the sloth, when he's in the tops of the trees, he is entirely safe from predators. And you guys are welcome to come right up to him, approach him, be close and personal with him. It's all good. So when he's in the tops of the trees, he is entirely safe from predators, with the exception of eagles. Eagles are the only predator that can get to him in the tops of the trees. The reason that he's safe in the tops of the trees is because he weighs very little. This guy weighs 15 pounds. So when he's in the tops of the trees, he can go much further out the branches than a predator that's large enough to threaten his life could go. So if he is out at the end of the branch and a large cat pushed the issue to the point that the branch broke, this slinky-like sloth would withstand an 80 to 100 foot drop to the rainforest floor. The cat would not. So the sloth would look over at the cat and say, "Ah, ah," and back up the tree he will go. And the cat will be laying there dead. So given that he's safe in the tops of the trees and at risk to his life when he's down at the rainforest floor, it makes no sense on the face of it that he comes down the same tree, same side of the tree every single time to go to the bathroom. When he goes to the bathroom, he gets his hind end right down to the ground and lets it rip on the ground. So if you guys want to see how a sloth goes to the bathroom, you can back up through some of our Facebook videos and see Sloth Potty Time is the title across the cover of it. And that shows you how a sloth goes to the bathroom. So anyhow, he comes down the same tree, same side of the tree, and goes to the bathroom in the same place every single time. The reason for that is the sloth-moth symbiotic relationship. So symbiotic means beneficial to both sides of the equation, where parasitic would mean beneficial to one side, neutral or harmful to the other side. So the benefit to the moth is that the sloth is the living environment of the moths. The moss and algae in the sloth's fur are the food source for the moths. The only reason the moths will leave the sloth during their life is to go to a nearby leaf to drink water that pools up in the cups of the leaves, and to jump off of the sloth when he comes down the tree to go to the bathroom and lay their eggs in the waste pile. So from there, with the sloth, it's basically row, row, row your boat. Every time he comes down the tree, there's something else going on with the moths. So when he comes down the tree this time, the moths lay eggs. The ones from a week ago are now larvae. The ones from 2 weeks ago are now moths, and the new moths, every time he comes down the tree, new moths fly up onto the sloth, and they live their whole life on the sloth. The three-toed sloth does have more moths living on him than a two-toed sloth does, and that is because of the tail. So the two-toed sloth gets down and he goes to the bathroom right on the ground, but the three-toed takes it to the next level and he uses that little tail and he digs a hole in the middle of his poop like that, and that puts him right into the poop, so that lets not only the moths fly up on him, but the larvae crawl up the tail onto the sloth. So the sloth, the three-toed, have even more moths on them than the two-toed do, but they're known for having around 150 moths living in their fur at any given time. In captivity, they don't. That's in the wild. Thank God. If you had to have a sloth covered in moths all the time, I don't think anybody would keep sloths. But that's the benefit to the moth, is that the sloth is the living environment of the moths. And there is a type of moth in the world called a sloth moth that lives nowhere in the world except in the fur and in the waste pile of a sloth. The benefit to the sloth is that the sloth digests his food by a bacterial process. We digest our food by an enzymatic process. Now the sloth has big sharp teeth. Obviously he chews the food. He's got a multi-chambered stomach, and his esophagus goes all the way around his stomach and then goes in, because the way he's oriented differently all the time. And his stomach is multi-chambered, so it does a lot of work on the food. But for us, at the end of the day, our food gets to the point of absorbable by an enzymatic process. His gets there by a bacterial process. We also have helpful gut bacteria in our guts, and they last throughout our lives unless we take a long course of antibiotics. If we do that, we need probiotics or some good Greek yogurt to fix our guts back up after a long course of antibiotics. What causes a sloth's bacteria colony to die out is if he gets cold. And if the sloth's bacteria colony dies out, he doesn't have GNC and he doesn't have Greek yogurt, so he's got no other way to replenish it. So the moths are where the bacteria come from that make the sloth digest its food. So as he grooms himself, he licks up a certain amount of the sloth moths and a certain amount of the waste of the moths. And that's where his bacteria colony comes from that makes him digest his food. So we said slow in their movement, slow in their digestion, slow in their metabolism, slow in their metabolic processes. So metabolic processes, a sloth, because it eats super low quality food with very little nutritional value to it, mainly leaves, the sloth's energy budget is really low. So the sloth's energy budget is so low that he can't even maintain his body temperature. So the sloth's core body temperature will essentially be whatever the outside air temperature is. So in the rainforest, that's not a problem for him. In the rainforest, daytime highs in the mid-80s, nighttime lows in the high 60s, and his body temperature does make that range of temperatures every single day. But when you take him out of the rainforest and you're in places like this, if you don't know what you're doing, and you let your sloth get cold, it will kill the bacteria colony that lives in him. And 30 days later, the sloth will die of starvation with his stomach all the way full of food, because he loses the ability to digest the food when the bacteria colony dies, and he has no way to replenish it. So as a sloth keeper, you have to be a sloth poopologist. So how we know if the sloth is healthy is by examining his poop every time he goes to the bathroom. Kind of like if you have a baby, check what's in their diaper to know how their guts are doing. So other things about a sloth. The sloth, you see that he's got big, sharp teeth, right? So if you're an evolutionist, you'd say this is a vicious predator with those huge claws and sharp teeth. And you probably wouldn't have any way to know that he's super slow and eats nothing but leaves. You know, examining the skeleton of this guy. But anyway, those big, sharp teeth. Sloths have a long lifespan. They live in the rainforest. They don't have a toothbrush. So it's important for his teeth to stay sharp throughout his life. So he has no enamel on his teeth, and his teeth, his canine teeth, grow throughout his life. So every time he opens and closes his mouth, his teeth are sharpening against each other like this. So rodents, their buck teeth are what grow throughout their life, and they're always needing to sharpen their teeth to keep them the right length and keep them sharp. The sloth, his canine teeth are what grow throughout his life, and his sharpen against each other like that. He doesn't get any replacement teeth, but his teeth do grow throughout his life. His nose is always wet like a dog. That's another thing to keep in sloths, is you have to maintain not only their temperature but their humidity. So we can get a little sweaty in here because the temperature is always 80 and the humidity is 50 plus. Sloth's eyes, they have a structure of their eyes called rod monochromacy. So they have all rod cells, no cone cells. So he sees only in grayscale because cone cells are what give us color vision. He has only rods, and his vision is full-time terrible. If you look at his eyes right now, even in this level of light, he's got just tiny pinpricks where his pupils are. And at night, those do open up significantly more, but even at night, his vision is awful. The sloth is working primarily off of a sense of smell and hearing. So for better or worse, the sloth knows what I smell like, and he knows what I sound like. And the monotone voice isn't a bad thing for him. Everybody else may find it annoying, but the sloth, I think, kind of likes it. And so when we come in the morning, open the door and say, "Hey, Flash," he just comes right down the tree because he's ready to go. Part of having a sloth that's all friendly and interactive like this is that we do very, very few encounters with our sloths. So the big guy here does 2 encounters a day, 1 at 10, 1 at 10:30, max of 4 people in an encounter. So he sees a maximum of 8 guests a day. The baby sloths also only do 2 encounters a day. So all of our sloths see very few people, and we think that that's the way they like it and that's the way they're comfortable. But our sloths are all ready to see us every time we come out to play with them. He does come out throughout the day. If we're in the kitchen and we have the door open, he'll come out and check us out and see what's going on if he happens to be awake. But his normal routine is that he has his 2 encounters, 1 at 10, 1 at 10:30. And at the end of his second encounter, we open up this door, and if he wants to, he scurries straight up the tree, goes over, climbs into his hammock, and he takes a nice long nap, and he'll sleep until 1 or 2 in the afternoon, maybe 3. Then he eats his dinner. His dinner is free choice. We don't feed him his dinner. He eats it from his dish. His dinner, he eats baby spinach and some biscuits that are good for his teeth, and they have a little bit of protein in them. What he ate today is his normal morning diet. He gets fruit, either 2 or 3 servings a week. And a serving of fruit for a sloth is like 1/2 of 1 banana, or a piece of an apple, or a piece of a mango, not a whole piece of fruit. And about once a week he gets a hard-boiled egg for a little bit of protein for him. But it is super important to maintain your sloth's diet just right. So sloths obviously can go to sleep hanging upside down. He's like, oh, belly's full, chillaxed, ready to go to sleep. And he can hang there for days. So if we were in PE class, we can remember that if we were trying to hang from this bar, a minute would be a long time to do a 2-arm hang, right? And that's because this is our stress or exertion state. This is our relaxed state. Sloth is the opposite. For him, his relaxed state is this. His exertion state is that. So if you've seen while he's been out here, if he's reaching out to you, he reaches out all slow, but then he can just draw it right back. Because that's like return to relaxed state. And so it is so true that the sloth is exerting no energy to hang from that branch, that if the sloth died, he would not necessarily fall out of the tree. He could continue to hang there dead for days until either something rotted or something knocked him out of the tree. So obviously he's pretty comfortable around people, or he wouldn't sit there and take a nap while we talk about him. But this guy's encounter was about 2 years in the making, because he came here from a static display. His first 2 years, he was not people-oriented the way that our baby sloths are. So when he came here, he had basically no human contact. So you can make an animal eat from your hand by withholding food from them until they get hungry enough they have to eat from your hand. But that would be like a adversarial relationship. So the reality of it is that I offer this sloth food from my hand while he gets his full breakfast, lunch, and breakfast and dinner every day for nearly a year before he decided he liked to eat from my hand, and several more months before he decided that he was good with eating from guests' hands. But so yeah, about 2 years in the making, this sloth encounter. But that's how you get a friendly sloth that actually enjoys being around people, is to treat them with respect and kindness. And we do hope that our sloth encounters here drive people in a conservation-minded way. And the biggest thing that all of us can do for conservation of not only sloths, but most wild animals, is waste less. Just by throwing away less paper, reduce, reuse, recycle, we can make significant impact for animals in the rainforest by not destroying their environments for the benefit of paper and whatever other products. Anybody have any questions about any sloths I didn't talk about today? No? So Dad surprised you had no idea, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. What did I not tell him about a sloth today, Kevin?
I think you went over like ribs and all that already, didn't you?
No, sloth has 46 ribs, 23 sets of ribs. And for our nursing student, it's worth knowing on a sloth's physiology that obviously for humans our guts sit in our pelvis and are upper bounded by our diaphragm, but they're just loose in there. And I can tell you from when I had a retroperitoneal lymph node dissection that when they take all your junk out and put it all back in, it can take a while to get back to where it's supposed to be. And then after later having massive hernia surgery, so it can take a while. So because a sloth is, right side up, upside down, inside out, and backwards all the time, his guts are actually connected by connective tissue inside of his rib cage. So he's got more ribs than other mammals do, and his organs are actually connected to his bones and various connective tissues inside to keep his stuff all in the right place. So he does have a check valve at the top of his stomach. People ask me how he can swallow hanging upside down. Of course, the peristalsis means that you could swallow just fine upside down too. If you stood on your head and drank through a straw, you wouldn't have any problem at all swallowing it. About the only animals that do rely on gravity to swallow their food is like geese and swans. And if you look at the geese and swans out there, that's why we feed them floating food, is they scoop it out of the water like this, and then they can hear, and gravity falls down into their stomach. But sloths, like people, they have the muscle spasm that moves their food from the back of their throat down to their stomach. And but they do have like a check valve at the top that keeps their food from leaking back out of their stomach over time, because you might hang upside down for days. They do also sit right side up. You can sometimes, when you're in the conduit upstairs where there's a huge window that watches this guy, you'll see him like sitting on a branch, and he puts one hand up for his balance, and he just like sits on a branch, and he might sleep for hours that way. This guy actually prefers to sleep in his hammock instead of in a branch, but sloths in the wild don't have quite the same luxuries that our guy does. Like, 80 degrees all the time and perfect humidity and hammocks to hang in and no predators to chase him. So metabolic processes, they also grow really slowly. So Zoe, our older baby sloth, her birthday was December 16th, and she is currently about 9 pounds at just over a year. This guy is about 15 pounds. The baby that we have is like 1.5 pounds. But also about metabolic processes, like most prey animals, sloths live much longer in captivity than they do in the wild because, you know, nothing kills them. And historically, it's always been that, you know, a sloth generally will lose his life when he comes down the tree to go to the bathroom, because he comes down the same tree, same side of the tree, poops in the exact same place every single time, so the predators basically know where to look for him. And that is how they normally lose their lives, is coming down the trees. But these days, with as much human encroachment as there is, they're losing their lives in addition to predators to, you know, traffic. When they go across a street on the ground, they can only move like 6 feet per minute. So if it's 50 feet across the street and he goes just dead perpendicular with purpose, it's still going to take him 8 or 9 minutes to cross 50 feet across the street. So a fair amount of them get hit by cars, and fragmentation of the rainforest canopy is a big deal, because even when they don't lose acreage, when the light shines through the canopy the way that it normally would not for the rainforest, that's bad for them. And as they're starting to build power lines actually through some of the areas where sloths live, of course when they go along one line, it's like a bird that as long as they're just on one power line, it's fine. But if they reach across to a different power line, or from the power line to the pole, you know, fried sloth. So, but in captivity, they don't suffer from any of those things. So in captivity, no one can tell you how old a sloth can get. So what I can tell you is the 2 breeders that I'm familiar with each have a female sloth that's over 35 years old and still reproductive. Most mammals, and of course no one can tell you for sure that this is true of a sloth, but most female mammals don't reproduce in the last half to third of their life. So that would suggest they could live quite a bit longer. All that anybody can tell you for sure that is that in Germany they had a sloth that was continuously captive for 51 years and didn't show any signs of old age last I knew how that sloth was doing. So they could live at least 50 in captivity, but no one can absolutely tell you the upper limit of how long a sloth can live. It's like, I'm ready to go to bed, y'all. You guys want to see the way he goes up to his bed?
Okay.
Hey, Flash. Hey, buddy. Hey, wanna go take a nap? Huh? A lot of people don't know sloths have ears. His ears, proportional to his head, are just as big as ours. See his ears right there? Hey, buddy. Ready to go to bed, Bubba? You want to go upstairs? He's like, I don't know, I might just sleep right here.
Do they like to be held?
Our babies do, but that is because they have been people-oriented from birth forward. This guy doesn't, because, well, I don't know that he doesn't like it, but he's never been held. So I'm with this sloth every single day, and I stand, you know, right up, face to face, shoulder to shoulder with him. And if he wanted to move on to me, he certainly has the opportunity, and I would like it, but he's never made any move to move on to me, and we interact with him in the way that he's comfortable with. So he's never been held. The baby sloths that we have here are raised by a sloth conservation guy who's a doctor of veterinary medicine in Miami, and he has been raising sloths for 30 years. So our sloths here are multiple generations captive bred. This one didn't come from the guy in Miami. This came from one that they don't raise them the same way that he does. But he has a really genius system that his mothers are clicker trained, so click, 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 I'm gonna take the baby, but it will be back. And the mothers are used to it, and it doesn't stress them out, and therefore it doesn't stress the babies out. So starting from 2 weeks old, the babies are held by people every single day. And they start, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, a minute, until by the time that the mother sloth has weaned the baby is being held for 30 minutes, multiple times a day. And so the babies are completely oriented to people and actively seek human attention and interaction all of the time. So you can see videos of them on our Facebook or TikTok or something. He's gone to sleep out here. Hey, Bubble. All kind of groceries in here because we have various different kinds of animals. Hey, Bob. Hey. Come here. Huh. Just gonna take a nap right here, dude. Hey, buddy. Go up to bed. Yeah, maybe you can sleep here.
Okay.
Crashed hard, didn't he?
Yeah, he's out. Didn't have enough coffee.
I guess not.
Do he and Zoe get along really well?
Him and Zoe have met each other, but sloths are solitary animals. Wild or free, they don't live in colonies. And sloths come together for breeding purposes only, and even that only for 2 or 3 minutes. They are not romantics. And so you can see videos that I'm like sitting in a chair right here and Flash is hanging up and she's sitting in my lap. And they see each other, they're aware of each other, but they have no interest in each other. And the little baby is Dash, and Dash only weighs, I don't know, not quite 1.5 pounds right now. So Dash is too little to put around the other two.